very honest with you. I believe that in a democratic, civilized society, health care is a human right. Government should make that happen.
Got a drink.
I believe that every young person in this country...
This just shows you that Bernie Sanders has no idea as to what a fundamental human right is.
I think it's you who doesn't understand that.
Human right, okay, by the way, is something constitutionally, which he has no concept of.
Ha! So guys, only rights given to you in your Constitution are your rights. And in no way could you add to that Constitution or amend things within it. Impossible.
It's pretty clear. Is not granted to you by government.
It is 100,000,000% only granted to you by government. Because he's going to go to God for this because he's a fucking moron. But no, your rights aren't given to you by some godly figure. It's given to you by your government. If your government doesn't exist, then there's nobody to uphold your rights. You might say, oh, well, the good of people will uphold my rights. You know, people want to live, so they'll let me live. Nope. Nope. People will murder you, and there's nothing they can do about it, nothing to actually stop them from doing it. Unless, of course, you set up another community, and then that community sets down ground rules, but guess what? That's just government again.
Otherwise, any commodity, goods or service could be a right.
Yep.
It's like in Germany, they declared
the
internet to be a human right.
Yep, it could be. Very much so. When something becomes necessary to a human life, it is deemed a right. Whoa! Water could be deemed a right because you need it to live. Food is deemed a right because you need it to live. The internet is turning into something that you need to succeed in your life. Okay? You can't get it, like, there's a turning point where you can't get an education properly if you don't have internet, because there's certain, like, online programs. You can't get a job if you don't have the internet, because sometimes places only accept applications online. The internet is becoming fundamentally needed by the human race. Also, the plethora of information on it, if you don't have access to that, you are now, like, you are literally removing yourself from, like all this information. Like, you don't have access to it. That's a problem. Okay, so yes, anything could be deemed a human right. It's a debate on what is and is not a human right. Just because you like what you got, like, basically his thought process is, oh, the Constitution, I like everything in the Constitution, so the Constitution the American Constitution is given to us by God, and therefore you can't change it. As if, like, the Canadian Constitution doesn't, like, the Canadian Constitution, that's not true for the Canadian Constitution, because we put in healthcare as a right into our Canadian Constitution. So at that point, to Stephen Crowder, it's no longer God-given. So whoops. The only Constitution that's God-given is the American one, or any other thing that he agrees with. And then because of that, you can't debate with it or change it, because it was God. Like, it's impossible to debate him with this, because he's just gonna fall back into, well, God gave it to me. It's like, well, fuck him. He doesn't exist, buddy.
No, human rights are inalienable rights that are given to you by God, and they are simply recognized by government. Things like freedom of speech. Freedom of speech
is not given to you by government, nor is it given to you, nor is it, like, respected by just, like, it's not inalienable. If you are sitting on a beach with somebody, and somebody decides to sew up your fucking mouth, they just took away your right to freedom of speech. So it's clearly not inalienable. It's not given to everybody, because you just got it removed because somebody just overpowered you and tied your mouth up.
Freedom of assembly.
Freedom of assembly is also not given to you, because if the government decides to, or anybody, a company could do this. If a company decides to just come over to you, let's say you don't have a government, a company could just come over and be like, hey, you can't assemble. And then there goes your right for assembly. Who's giving you that right? Your government, not fucking God.
Freedom of religion, the freedom to self-protection, the Second Amendment, health.
Freedom to self-protection, the Second Amendment. It's so God-given, it was only given to the United States. Good meme, buddy.
Care is not a human right.
Yeah. But it is to every other developed nation, including Canada. It's not a human right to you because you don't like it, and you don't want your government adding it to it. Like, if you agreed with it, then you would be all on board. Oh, God gave us fucking healthcare. But simply because you don't agree with it, you just don't want it here. So, like, get it out. Like, fucking Jesus. How do I sound? I feel like I'm min-maxing this goddamn microphone. How do I sound? I feel like I'm min-maxing this guy. Okay, I don't know. But fucking Jesus Christ. If you literally think, like, you can't add stuff to your human rights. If you literally think, like, you can't add stuff to your human rights. Yeah, okay, yeah, that sounds good. I just want... This is, like, the problem with arguing with people for, like, rights. That when you've, like, backtracked to this point, like, you've just agreed to the Constitution. So what happened is that Steven Crowder fundamentally agrees with the Constitution. Only the American Constitution. And so to solidify that as an undebatable topic, he's put it with God. So God gave it to him. So you can't shake him from it, because he's gonna put his authority, daddy figure God, above you, no matter who the fuck you are. Doesn't matter who you are. God will always sit above you to him. So it's impossible to debate him on this stuff, because he's just gonna backtrack to God, even though it's completely fucking insane. Because that means the Canadian Constitution wasn't given to Canada by God. So, okay, it's like, what's the favoritism to the United States? Like, what the fuck? So, and then, like, Europe, any constitutions there weren't given, just because they have healthcare in there, just because they added healthcare to the Constitution. And the United States has amended and changed their Constitution constantly. So is that God-driven? Is all of those decisions God-driven?
Right. College is not a human right. And by the
College may become a human right when it becomes... So schooling is a human right. Schooling was deemed a human right. And it has to be provided to you by the government. That's what public schooling is. Okay? K through 12. Because it was deemed that is, like, suitable for you to get a job. Maybe that's not true anymore, so Bernie wants to include college in that. It's called debating and discussion about what is right and not. You want to actually remove that right by introducing... putting in place vouchers, school vouchers, which is
By the way, you know how else you know that he doesn't understand the concept of human rights? The only way
you don't understand the concept of human rights. You literally think it comes from some sky daddy, you fucking moron.
You forfeit basic human rights, which are given to you by God as a birthright, is when you irreparably harm someone else, like in the incident of a violent crime or some kind of a serious sex offense. And by the way, he doesn't think those people should forfeit those rights to vote and...
Oh my God. It's so fucking so basically what he's done is he's put into the box anything that is direct violence so anything that the only way you can break it is through direct violence, even though healthcare is, like, you having your healthcare removed from you, I would call that direct violence. But he's not calling it direct violence because it's not like you're getting punched in the face or physically stabbed, even though you got physically stabbed and no one's taking care of you. So it's fucking mind-blowing, dude. It's so invigorating. Yeah. So angering, this fucking belief of just going back onto God as if he's just... And it's always with stuff that he agrees with, right? If he agrees with it, then it comes from God. And the only reason he does that is so that he can never, ever, 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 ever get debated on it, because it's an authority figure. He's appealing to his authority. He's appealing to his sky daddy, even though he wants to be logical. He's putting himself out there as if he's all about facts and logical, and we're having a discussion here to try to get to the root of and facts and stuff like that. But he moves back on God, on the Constitution. It's insanity. And then so now he's moving. He's pivoting it so that unless of course, like, freedom of speech can only be stopped through violence, right? Like, someone has to kill you to stop you. Your right to life is only stopped through violence because someone has to kill you. Your freedom of movement can only be stopped through violence because someone has to, like, hold you down or whatever, and blah, blah, blah. So all these things, like, are... But if you don't have health care, I would consider that violence. He won't. So then that's like... And then he won't, and then he'll somehow lean back onto God. He won't consider it violence, but it's violence. Let's be honest. And then... It's just painful. I gotta listen over this again.
Irreparably harm given to you by God as a birthright.
Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. I don't understand. It's so stupid. How does he even think this? So your rights are given to you by God. So the way he thinks about it is that your rights are given to you by God at birth, and then the people who uphold them is government. which literally just means that you could add any right to that, and then it's your, yeah, okay. So you could just backtrack this onto adding any right to that because it's God-given. And, like, yeah, okay. That's, wow. That is extremely dumb. So you could literally just backtrack this to healthcare is a right because God gave it to us. Like, that's, yeah, you could just straight up backtrack that onto that easily. Because he's going with, your rights are given to you by God at birth, and then the government upholds those rights. Okay, well then just include healthcare into that as a God-given right. Done. Like, why wouldn't Jesus want that for people, right? He was borderline communistic, or really was communistic, right? Okay, like, Jesus.
Is when you irreparably harm someone else, like in the incident of a violent crime or some kind of a serious sex offense. And by the way, he doesn't think those people should forfeit those rights to vote and elect him.
So it's like, why is your right to vote? Is your right to vote God-given to you? Because that also makes no sense. Because if you're born into a dictatorship, you don't have that right. What?
Your next president, while they are currently serving in a maximum security prison. So
okay, so now he's moving in with the why criminals are should criminals be allowed to vote thing. So he's gonna blow this up into the Boston Bombers, like as if they have some sort of voice, as if the Boston fucking Bombers are gonna get an Allahu Akbar boy in the presidency. Like, what the fuck do you? How much of the population are violent criminals? Probably less than 10%. Okay? So if they have some sort of voting power, if you think they actually influence the country, you're fucking bonkers, dude. The only reason you need to give felons the right to vote or any kind of criminal is so that the government cannot take it away from you. If a felon can vote, and if the government at any point, I don't know how he doesn't agree with this. It's so mind-blowing. You would think that this would be an easy thing to agree with, but he just rolls back onto his stupid fucking Sky Daddy. It's impossible not to agree with this. Okay, so let's say you as a felon, you don't have the right to vote. Then tomorrow, your government makes it that breathing air is a felony, or like walking in a specific area is a felony charge. Just as a new tyrannical government comes in and they make like a very broad thing illegal and a felony charge. Okay, now the entirety of the United States population is considered a felon, so now they have direct control over them, and he couldn't disagree with that because you have no right to vote as a felon. Like, do you get it? That's why you want to give the right to vote to felons, because A, the bad ones, the super uber bad ones, like, they had the right to vote before, and they didn't affect your country at all, and now they still will not have an effect on your country. If you think that fucking maximum security prison boy has the influence to change like the entirety of society around him, as if like the society's gonna burn to hell if you give the right to vote to criminals, you're insane. Canada does this. The right to vote for you as a felon and as any kind of prisoner have the right to vote in Canada. Our society is fine. We're great, okay? Like, fuck off with this fucking dog shit, okay?
Rights, healthcare, college, free income, free you name it, and you don't lose those rights even if you rape and assault your next...
Actually, you lose all of those rights except for the right to vote. Well, schooling, I guess they get. Healthcare, they actually get more healthcare probably than normal citizens, which is funny. Let's see. Well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, yeah, I would like to give our criminals that because I'm more for rehabilitation instead of punishment. It's way better to rehabilitate people, and it's much cheaper to rehabilitate them because if you don't rehabilitate somebody, they never get out of the prison system, so it just costs more and more money as they stay.
Door 14-year-old neighbor.
Yeah, that happens all the time,
Steven Crowder. You know what? Everybody in the prison system walked over to their neighbor and fucking raped them. That's exactly what happened, Steven. Every single person who's in the criminal system has gone out and raped a 14-year-old boy.
Oh my fucking god.
Even if you rape and assault, income, free you name it.
Like, it's just the most feelings argument he could possibly fucking think of, because he has no actual argument against felons having the right to vote. He's no real argument against it. So he just sticks to, oh, do you really want that guy who like diddled your kids to vote? It's like, well, he has literally no effect on the on on the government. So yeah, I don't give a fuck. I would want myself to be able to vote if I'm ever considered a felon for stupid reasons. Let's say tomorrow the government decides to make it illegal for people to own red cars. That means I would be a felon at that point. So I would like the right to vote still, so that I can change that. You know? Okay. It's fucking dead easy. Like, it's impossible to disagree with that if you're Steven Crowder. So he has to come up with some feels argument to get around it, because he just doesn't want criminals voting. He just doesn't want people voting for Democrats is actually the root of the issue, right? He doesn't want these extra votes for Bernie Sanders. He just doesn't want some lefty getting in there and voting. He doesn't want anybody who's been thrown in there for drug charges to be voting, right? Okay, anything that's like minute, like a small little crime. That's why he's blowing it up to be fucking like, oh yeah, you want that guy who raped? Like, nope, not every single fucking criminal is a rapist, or like, oh my god. Like, there are other criminal charges. You get thrown in jail for your entire life for just selling cocaine. Okay, like, there are other criminal charges. Crossing the border illegally, right? Like, oh my god.
And you don't lose those rights even if you rape and assault your next door 14-year-old neighbor.
I like how he's anything that Bernie Sanders has said to like clarify anything he just said. So maybe it's not even true that like the supermax prisoners wouldn't have the right to vote. We don't even know, because he just fucking talked over Bernie Sanders for the entirety of his speech.
It's what the founding fathers would have wanted.
Guys, let me just key in on this. From Bernie's own website, he says that he wants to re-enfranchise the right to vote to the 1 in 13 African Americans who have had their vote taken away by a felony conviction, paid their debt to society, and deserve to have their rights restored. I'm actually curious about the rest of the people who are felons, but apparently it will only apply to African Americans.
Oh, except for that's not what he just said. Oh my god. What it's actually, if you apply... Wow. Guess what? It turns out that if you apply the right to vote to all felons, it includes the 1 in 14 African Americans like he was talking about. Wow, it's almost like he doesn't have to include that extra little spiel like, oh yeah, by the way, all white people will get it too. When he says the words all felons will be able to vote. Yeah, it's almost like that's like second nature, like just common sense, that when something like all felons can vote would apply to white people. Like, how fucking retarded are you that you literally have to include... Oh my god. Like, does every single document have to include... By the way, it's also for white people, just so you know. I don't know if you're aware of this, but it also includes white people, just by the way. All people get health care. I want to bring in this bill to help the Hispanic people. Wait, you don't want to help white people? Do you want to help white people, bro? Bro, you know what? I know you said all, but like, you don't want to help white people? Oh my fucking god, dude. What about the other felons? Yeah, it's included in the word all. Sound like running over my headphones. Fucking Jesus. So fucking invigorating. Ah, no! The wheel on my fucking chair just flew off. Son of a bitch! It happened again, didn't it? No, it didn't. I lied.
He's the 1 in 13
like, ugh.
who are restored. I found the right to vote to the 1 in 13 site. He says that he wants to re-enfranchise the right to vote to the 1 in 13 African Americans who have had their vote taken away by a felony conviction, paid their debt to society, and deserve to have their rights restored. I'm actually curious about the rest of...
Oh yeah, well I mean if you read the rest of like his proposal, it's talks about everybody, all criminals.
The people who are felons, but apparently it will only apply to African Americans, the 1 in 13.
Wow. That's totally what's happening. I wonder if you explain that in this speech you literally just talked over for the entirety of like the last 30 seconds or whatever. I wonder, I don't know. We'll figure it out. Oops. Give me the fucking video. God damn it. Oh, it's right there. I'm an idiot. It's not loading.
said that you believe that people with felony records should be allowed to vote while in prison. Does this mean that you would support enfranchising people like the Boston Marathon?
I forgot about that question. I hate that so much. So you want to give felons, you know, people who do small crimes such as just selling drugs, and like other like things that are very suspectly felonies, and then let's just blow it up to the Boston bomber, as if the Boston bombers have any effect on your democracy. Oh my God.
Marathon bomber, a convicted terrorist and murderer. Do you think that those convicted of sexual assault should have the opportunity to vote for politicians who could have a direct impact on women's rights?
Yeah. That's like the burden you put on yourself when, like, you know, those people take up about 0.00000000001% of the population. If you actually think they're a threat to the democracy, I will gladly. I can't really leave your country. I'm not even part of it, so I don't care.
Here is my view. If somebody commits a serious crime, sexual assault, murder, they're going to be punished. They may be in jail for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, their whole lives.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you commit a serious crime.
Yeah.
But I think the right to vote is inherent to our democracy. Yes,
Yeah.
even for terrible people.
Yeah.
Because once you start chipping away and you say, well, that guy committed a terrible crime, not going to let him vote. Or that person did that, not going to let that person vote. You're running down.
It's almost like he's describing verbatim what I was talking about. And Steven Crowder is completely blown over it because he's a fucking lunatic.
Down a slippery slope. So I
Yeah,
believe
that's true.
that people who commit crimes, they pay the price.
Yep.
When they got out of jail,
100%.
they certainly should have the right to vote.
Uh-huh.
I do believe that even if they aren't
Because did you know that felons don't even have the right to vote after they come out of the jail? Yeah. How's that for democracy?
in jail, they're paying their price to society. But
Yeah.
that should not take away their inherent American right to
Yeah,
participate in
100%. Yo, thanks, buddy. I appreciate you.
For the answer. My follow question.
Thanks for the follow, buddy. I'm just going through. So thanks for the views, everybody. Thanks for the follow. I'm just going through Steven Crowder's stupid fucking CNN town hall. Let me know if my mic's being too loud because I've been a little bit loud. His stupid fucking CNN town hall where he's talking about the right to vote. I could go over it right now too. I can't. Well, just go. Yeah. It's just invigorating. Yeah, so I was just going through this town hall, and I just went over Bernie Sanders' talking point about it, basically. So he got the trick question at first, because it's like, blah, 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 like they're expanding it to all things. And he's just explaining verbatim what I explained before, which is that if you don't allow criminals to vote, felons to vote, then you open up the window for your government coming in and saying, like, hey, by the way, you're a felon now. I know you didn't really do anything, but we decided to, like a tyrannical government takes over, we decided, hey, you know what? Fuck it. Owning white pencils is considered a felon now. You know, shit. You know what? Smoking weed, if you have ever smoked weed once in your life, you're a felon now, okay? I know we, like, made it legal, but now it's a felony again. So, like, you know, I hope he can win the nomination. Unless, of course, there's some super deep state conspiracy going around. I'm pretty sure he's got it in the bag. Because it's like, I don't think this, like, the uber deep state can stop, like, him, Tulsi, all the other progressives running, and, like, he's, like, number one. He polls, like, uber popular all the time. So I don't think there's anything, like, stopping him. Right? So I don't know where, like, yeah. I think he's pretty much got it in the bag. Like, I don't see any reason why he could be stopped. Well, I mean, if you got people like fucking Steven Crowder, I guess. So, but yeah, so Bernie Sanders just goes on to explain, like, verbatim. No, fuck Biden. He's like a centrist, dog. Screw him. Biden doesn't really stand for much. He's been, like, flip-floppy on healthcare, right? Like, that's a problem. If he wasn't so flip-floppy on healthcare, maybe he could do it. But he's too flip-floppy on healthcare. He's not strict enough on gun reform. Those are the things you need, bro. Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying, like, unless, of course, the Democratic establishment wants to fuck over democracy one more time, then Bernie's got it in the bag. So that's what I'm saying, like, unless, of course, there's some, like, deep state conspiracy against Bernie Sanders, again for like, because 2016 was kind of that, right? The superdelegates chose Hillary anyways. If there's one of those again, then like, well, then the Democratic Party is just thrown out fucking democracy, right? Yeah. Mouse Reveille. Thanks for the follow, buddy. Yeah, like, unless of course there's some fucking deep state conspiracy against Bernie Sanders to stop him. I don't think it's possible. Yeah, like the DNC was yikes in 2016. I'm pretty sure they can't risk it again, unless of course they literally just want to give it to the Republicans. If they straight up just want to go Republican, then by all means. But I'm pretty sure you guys, because of your constitution, have like vigorous democracy going on. Like there's no way that your population would allow you to do this. With your like uber distrust of government, there's no way you would just let this happen. Like let some deep state shit go on one more time against Bernie Sanders. I mean, there's enough right-wingers that hate him enough and call him a socialist that they might let it happen, which would be fucking amazing. But if Bernie Sanders gets screwed one more time, let's say he does get screwed one more time, and the right wing like says it's fine, then I mean, for like good luck. You've lost all hope, and there's nothing Bernie could do about that because it's just like the right wing freaking out, right? But let's move back on this so I can kill myself even more. Sorry, in a video game. Obama, yeah.
When you commit a serious crime. But I think the right to vote is in.
So he just went over basically that you're already getting punished for being. I'm pretty sure most of you have seen this, but you're already being punished heavily for doing a big crime, right? Like obviously.
Inherent to our democracy. Yes, even for terrible people, because once you start chipping away and you say, well, that guy committed a terrible crime, not going to let him vote, or that person did that, not going to let that person vote. You're running down a slippery slope. So I believe that people who commit crimes, they pay the price. When they get out of jail, I believe they certainly should have the right to vote. But I do believe that even if they are in jail, they're paying their price to society. But that should not take away their inherent.
So just so everybody knows, this happens in Canada. As a criminal, you're allowed to vote in Canada. Also, the other thing about being a criminal and having the right to vote, if you actually think, like if you're some fucking conservatard who actually verbatim, not verbatim, that's not the right word. If you actually legitimately think that a criminal has substantial voting power in the United States, you're bonkers. Like as if like the person at the start saying like, oh, do you really want to give the power to like people like the Boston bomber? The Boston bomber is one person in a country of 300 million people. As if they have like actual sway in the political process. Like fucking holy smokes.
Right.
It's literally the only reason you should give the right to vote to felons or any kind of criminal is so that the government can't take away your right to vote because they just make some arbitrary law that makes everybody felons or criminals.
To participate in our democracy.
And you would think that like someone like Steven Crowder would unanimously agree with that. But of course, since Bernie Sanders is the first person to bring it up, he's got to bring it back to God. He's got to say, like, you got your inalienable rights. You don't understand how rights work. You want to give healthcare to people? Like, God didn't tell us to do it. Even though, like, if God just told us to do it, then it would be a right, and then you would have to agree to it. So I'm spitting everywhere. Right? Like, it doesn't, the argument, if you at any point in your life decide to use God as a legitimate argument, I'm sorry to break it to you, buddy, but die in a video game. Just please, like, go find the nearest Minecraft cave and just go in there, find a creeper, stand beside him for a little bit, okay? Because, like, oh my god. Because what happens, let's say you, like, so Steven Crowder falls back on God, right? Like, oh, okay, these rights are given to you by God. The Second Amendment is given to you by God, even though no other country was given it. God-given. I don't know why God has a fixation on America, but I guess the, what is it, the Mennonites, whichever ones say that like Arkansas is like the fucking Holy Land, whoever those people are, I guess they're right. But like Second Amendment given to you by God, and you can't ever debate them on that because it's God gave it to me. Okay, we can move back to this thing. I can't.
Interesting legal question. I was thinking about this earlier. There are different classifications of felonies, correct? Yeah. So there should be obviously cut off. I don't think that if, let's say, for some.
Oh, so he's gonna half agree with it because he realizes that this is a stupid fucking argument and that you actually have to give people the right to vote. Oh my god! So he's gonna backtrack a little bit, saying, but But the problem is that you've already like blown it way too far out of proportion, and you want to give these barriers, right? Like a classification of felony. Let's say there's like class 1 felons and class 2 felons. What's to stop the government from just making every class 1 felon a class 2 felon in like the blink of an eye? And you have like some stupid fucking associate, like you have. Oh my God, you're like so closely tied with your Republican Party that I wouldn't blame you if you just were like, oh well, you know what? You class 2 felons, they deserve it. And the class 1 felons becoming class 2 felons? Fuck it. YOLO. Yeah. Mormons, I believe. Yeah. So I guess they're right, you know. God give it, boys. Fucking.
For some reason, at some point, you got caught with a bag of cocaine or crack or meth. I know they're going to say it's racist if you don't say crack. I don't necessarily think you should lose your right to vote for.
Oh, he's right there, guys. Yeah, that one time when Jesus walked over to America, totally possible. Like, so now here we go. Here comes Steven Crowder's like more of a backtrack into what I was talking about, right? That you have to give the right to vote, but he's going to try to separate it from like a classification of felon. The issue still lies. There's still that loophole where at any point the government can say selling crack is a type or a tier 2 felony charge, and once you open that door. Now, because it's true, most African American people deal with crack over cocaine. So if you make crack a tier 2 felony, that means you're disproportionately affecting the black population. So the government is allowed to do that if they just so see it fit. And I'm pretty sure Steven Crowder would have no problem putting crack as a tier 2 felon instead of like a whatever, you know? Maybe not because he's like going against it, but some people would agree with that. Some people have enough of a. Like, he'd probably just have to look at 2 studies. Like, the administration would just have to come up with 2 random studies that are probably not really backed that well. And he'd be like, oh, yeah, I mean, the studies show crack cocaine caused the World War II, guys. Therefore, it's bad.
For all time. But I do think if you're a violent felon, if you're a sex offender, and again, it's...
Okay, but what does violent mean? So now somebody takes crack or sold crack to somebody, and that person who bought the crack died, overdosed. Okay, well, now if you just consider, so because that's a possibility when you're selling crack to people, you could consider anyone who sells crack a violent felon, and now they're put into the category of violent felon, and now they can't vote anymore. See where the slippery, anytime you try to open a slippery slope with voting, it could easily be exploited. 100%.
It's a different degree of felony. You shouldn't have a say in the laws that we create if you're going to blatantly disregard.
Blatantly, I mean, most of the time people have like a mental disorder, and that's why they do their heinous crimes. Most of the time. Yeah, but if you're but that's the biggest problem is because what's to say like what's gonna stop the government from telling you like, okay, maybe let's say we agree that if you're in jail for any reason you can't vote. While you're in jail, you can't vote. Okay, the time that you're in jail and can't vote. Okay. Now, tomorrow, the government makes it illegal for you to sell weed again. Tomorrow, it's a felon for you to sell weed again. Well, now you're in jail for selling weed, and you can't vote anymore. And most of the population smokes drugs or does weed, so now they're all felons. None of them can vote. A huge portion of your population has been completely annihilated from the democratic process just because you made one small thing illegal again. You can move it on to something else, right? Small things just like if you drive, let's go the whole Green Party. Let's say the Green Party becomes tyrannical, right? Yeah, exactly. Like, let's say the Green Party wants to be super tyrannical, okay? The Green Party gets into power, and they'll go, okay, it's illegal for you to drive a gas car. Well, now, a bunch of people who are if it's illegal, and you are a felon, if in the past 10 years you've driven a gas car because you're killing our planet. I'm just trying to link into the cons, if there's anyone out there. Now, anybody who has driven a gas car in the past 10 years is now a felon, and you can't vote because you drove a gas car in the past 10 years. Like, the gates, like, there's too much. You just have to give the right to vote to everybody. Those criminals, those maximum security criminals, are paying the price by being in jail for the rest of their lives, and they have zero sway in anything, right? Like, none. Like, the Boston Bombers take up 0.00001% of the population. It's, like, if you actually think that felons in the country, like, violent felons, like you're saying, have a real effect on democracy and the political process, then you're just insane. I'm sorry to break it to you. But to Crowder, that's true because because Bernie Sanders is touting for this, he'll get more votes from criminals, and that's the bottom line, is that Steven Crowder just doesn't want Bernie getting more votes. That's the bottom line. He doesn't want Bernie Sanders getting more votes. And he brings it back to God too, right? He's just like, well, it wasn't given to you by God. It's like, well, what if it, okay, well, it could easily be given to us by God. I can make another spaghetti book tomorrow, and like if the Pope comes out to, well, I guess he's not Catholic, so I don't think he listens to the Pope. But if the Pope came out tomorrow and said it was an inalienable right because God told him, a bunch of people would believe it.
Regard them in a way that harms other citizens.
Absolutely. I mean, whether you call it a social contract, whether you look at just the utilitarian, practical aspect of giving someone like that the right to vote again, and granted, it's going to be a small minority.
Also, most felons in the United States, I'm pretty sure this is true, can't vote even once they're out of jail. So if you were once a convicted felon for selling weed, let's say, you were once a convicted felon for smelling, you can't vote ever again. That's total insanity, okay?
But in any particular place, I'm really thinking.
Also, I like that he'll never. You can bring this up a million times, but Canada has this. Canada, if you're at any point in your sentencing, you can vote. Felons, anybody can vote, because we realize that it's not a problem, and it's the best way to stop the government from fucking you over. Yeah, and so some states are taking that off, right? It's like, well, is that like against the like, would Steven Crowder have to disagree with that? Of course not, because Steven Crowder's not an idiot. So he'll have to agree that once you're out of jail, you have the right to vote. But it's like, oh, but when you're in jail, and then once that becomes not popular, he'll move again. And like that's the problem whenever he backtracks onto like the God argument, is that he'll never get off of it. So, and it's totally movable. Like you can move the God argument to anything, right? It's like right now he thinks that the Second Amendment is a God-given right, even though no other country on the fucking planet has it. It's a God-given right. So you can't ever budge him on that. But let's say one day it becomes unpopular for him to be pro-Second Amendment. He's just going to change it, and then and there's no backlash because there's no actual, like, set-in-stone writing from God saying that the Second Amendment is it. So he could just change his mind at any point and be like, oh, it was wrong. Whoops.
Of Californians, I mean, they're going to have the.
What do you mean, like not brushed up? Like he hasn't changed on. He's super uber duber, super uber pro Second Amendment. So did I say First Amendment? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I mean, yeah, he breaks a bunch of them, right? It's free speech, yeah. Well, I don't know. Like, sorry, what are you trying to say? Yep, has Steven Crowder not brushed up on the First Amendment? That was a really weird thing. I hope everyone likes this. This is happening now. I did it by accident, now I just have to own up to it. Yeah, I mean, like, it's really weird. His, like, relationship with religion is really, really weird. He, like, understands that separation from church and state is a thing, so he's like, oh yeah, government and religion should be removed. But he's, like, super unclear on that. Because people in government, like, you can't even run for president if you're somewhat atheistic. You have to be religious in some sort. So clearly, church and state are not totally removed. Like, not even close. But, like, I don't know. It's like, it's really weird on, like, his. He says that Bernie Sanders doesn't understand rights, but clearly Steven has no idea what the fuck rights are or, like, how they're given to you. He literally thinks that all your rights, like, the Constitution was given to you by God, which is, no, it was given to you by government and is upheld by government. If tomorrow the United States went tyrannical and removed all your rights, God's not coming to give them back to you, okay? Tomorrow, fucking Adolf Hitler can rise from the ashes and take over the United States, and God will not stop him, because God's not real.
The largest problem with this, if that right to vote is reestablished, it just doesn't
Won't really
work.
change the voting block.
Problem with this particular place, I'm really thinking of Californians. I mean, they're going to have the largest problem with this if that right to vote is reestablished. It just doesn't.
Yeah, it's God-given right to bear arms in the Second Amendment, but First Amendment and Constitution says freedom of and from religions. Yeah. Exactly, right? Like separation of church and state, but all of your rights are God-given. Well, isn't that like including church and state? Because everything's like, what? Yeah, no, it's really weird. And then right here, I bet you right now he's admitting that the voting bloc won't change that much, which is exactly why you need to give them the right to vote, because it doesn't fucking matter.
Have the largest problem with this if that right to vote is reestablished. It just
Won't really change the voting block a whole bunch, though. California.
They're all the same.
California went from blue to really blue. It's so blue, you've never seen blue. Oh yeah, voting to registered sex offenders. Nice.
Sounds like a plan.
The question goes to this being like you're writing in opposition.
Yeah, because it turns out that when you want to give what's another one that's like straight up what's another right that you give to everybody? Oh, well, I guess schooling, right? Some people won't go to school and just like completely fuck up their right to schooling. But it's still there for everybody, right? Your I know, and there's so much like just complete removal from reality with this guy. And like fuck, what's the other thing? Oh my god, I'm trying to remember it. Yeah. Oh my god, I remember, fuck. But he disagreed. I was gonna say like social, like healthcare, right? Like for the elderly is like something we just burden because it helps everybody. But the problem is like he disagrees with that, right? He wants to get rid of it. Oh, well, I guess you're right. Like, yeah. Well, I guess it's no. He wouldn't agree that driving is a right. It's a privilege. Blah blah blah. I guess like right to life is like the biggest one, right? Like, yeah, we give everybody the right to live, even if some people who are what the fuck? Everybody has the right to live, even if some people who are currently living want to kill others. Like, duh.
Ad against you by saying you think the Boston Marathon bomber should vote not after he pays his debt to
Oh my god, it's so dishonest when they do this. It's just it's a feels argument. Hey, you want to give criminals, like you want to give felons the right to vote, even though 99% of them are not violent at all. They just sold some drugs. Okay, well, I know you want to do this, but what about the Boston bomber? Okay, that guy was really evil. Okay, that guy, he was really evil. You know that? Like, fuck off. Like, one guy, yeah. Shit, we should be running our democracy because of one guy. Like, you know what? No criminal gets the right to vote because one guy did a bombing one time. That sounds perfect. It's just CNN, right? Like like Bernie Sanders is being attacked by the establishment, the news, the right wing. Like, fuck.
society, but while he's
And like the feminists too, because they're like, we don't need another white man in office. It's like, oh god.
in jail.
Oh, you're right.
Not after he pays his debt to society, but while he's in jail.
Oh, you're right.
There it is. You know, this is what I believe.
I'm gonna let Bernie talk
We
first,
believe in democracy.
because he's probably gonna say exactly what I'm thinking. Actually, I'll say it first. Okay, so what I'm thinking is that you can't do that. I already said it, I guess, but I'll say it again. You can't do that, saying like, oh, you can't vote while in jail because, well, people are in jail for all their lives when they do a violent crime. And also, again, who's to say the government won't just increase all of the, like you were saying, oh god, Ducati? Is it Ducati? Okay, that's probably Ducati. Ducati V4, the bike, yeah. Like you were saying, Ducati. If like what's to stop the government from just increasing the jail time just before an election? Like, oh, we have a bunch of convicted felons coming out of jail right before the 2020 election. Let's just increase their sentence by 1 year. Like, what? Who's to stop that?
You believe that every single American...
Like, if you open that door, that's the can of worms that will be open. Is like, hey, you want to vote? Oh, shit. We have an election coming up, and a bunch of felons are coming out, or getting out of jail. And, like, they just look for a report. Like, hey, can you do some reporting? Can you give me a stat sheet on which criminals are coming out of jail in specific years? And then they just look at it and they go, okay, there's a bunch of criminals coming out just before the 2025 election. I think it would be 2024. Yeah, exactly. Or like, okay, we'll let a bunch of people out in red states. We'll let a bunch of people out in blue states to vote. And it could just go back and forth, like just playing with inmates, right? Like, okay, we have a bunch of... okay, so let's increase the sentencing for a bunch of... like, you can get into gerrymandering this way. We'll just increase the sentencing for a bunch of these black inmates and let white inmates out. So that's now another form of gerrymandering that gets opened up. All of this gets eliminated if you just give everybody the right to vote, which is in your Constitution, is it not?
18 years of age or older who's an American citizen has the right to vote.
No, it should be 30.
Once you start
This guy needs to shut the fuck up. That is a totally different argument. No, it should be 30, as if that, like, undermines... Currently, right now, it's 18 to death. Sure, you can make an argument that it should be 30. That's not a part of this conversation right now, Dumbo. Get the fuck out of here.
He's giving new meaning to this. You know, you've heard that description of democracy. It's 5 wolves voting to eat a sheep.
Yes.
You've heard about that?
Yes.
Oh, I gotta listen to... hold on, we're gonna listen to this twice, because I have to... Because he's just gonna skip over something very important that, like, clarifies everything, and then he's just gonna start yelling, as if Bernie Sanders hasn't answered the question.
He's actually talking about wolves. He's talking about people who are in... eat a sheep. New meaning to this. You know, you've heard that description of democracy. It's 5 wolves voting to eat a sheep.
Yes.
You've heard about that? Yes. He's actually talking about wolves. He's talking about people who are in prison for violent crimes who should vote while they're in...
Yeah, Bernie Sanders right now is literally talking about excuses you could bring up to keeping people in jail. He was like, you can make excuses for poor people not to vote, blah, 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 blah. Yep.
That description of democracy, it's 5 wolves voting to eat a sheep.
Yes.
You've heard about that? Yes. He's actually talking about wolves. He's talking about people who are in prison for violent crimes who should vote while they're in prison.
This analogy is more like 5 wolves. The analogy he's going for, makes it sound like criminals actually have, like, voting power, which they don't. It's more like 5 wolves voting to eat 27 gorillas. Or not even, more like 200,000 gorillas would probably be like a closer representation of the percentage between criminals, violent criminals, and the population of the United States.
Here's the thing, I actually think it's an interesting conversation to entertain if they've paid their debt to society.
Sure.
And it is not one that directly...
Okay, but when is it sufficient that they've paid their debt to society? Okay? What is enough, okay? So a violent criminal, someone who murders somebody, so somebody murders their wife for sleeping with another man. He did it in a rage, whatever. Okay, so now he's in jail because he murdered somebody. But it wasn't like, it was like, what is that, 2nd or 3rd degree murder? I don't know what exactly that murder is, but it was like preemptive murder, blah, blah, blah. He was anger. It was emotion-based. It wasn't exactly his fault. He could be rehabilitated. What's to say the government just goes, these people can't be rehabilitated, okay? He was supposed to be out in 20 years. Now he's never out of jail. Everybody who's ever killed anybody, total fucking, fuck them, they can't vote forever. Who's to say that any kind of drug dealer can be classified as a violent offender? Like I said, if they just sell a drug that kills somebody, you were actually at fault for that because you sold the drugs to him, so therefore you're going to jail for the rest of your life.
Inflicting harm on somebody else. And I know that all crimes inflict harm on somebody else because you're a burden on the taxpayer.
Oh, look, he just admitted it, that you could actually make an argument that all crimes are a burden or violent, maybe violent, because I don't know if he would consider your like taxpayer. He probably would. He thinks taxation is theft, so therefore it would be violent in nature, right? So yeah. So okay, he concedes, I think. But I'll kind of like lightly foot it as he concedes that it could just be considered violence, right?
But it's different from a violent crime or sexual assault or something like that.
Right. Certainly.
What is a violent crime, my dude?
He's talking about people who've harmed other people.
People! Sorry, I did. I voice cracked too much to actually hate, so whatever.
Actually, maximum security prison voting.
When you've got...
Okay, so now, Stephen, what's the actual problem with that? Do they have any real power? Will they actually sway a vote in any way possible? No, they probably would not. I'm pretty sure they would take up, like, yeah, they would literally do nothing. So, it's literally just a constitutional amendment so that the government can't take away your right to vote in any way, because it would be non-constitutional, like it would be against the Constitution. If you just make the right to vote for everybody, there's no way your government could take it away reasonably, unless of course they just went full tyranny and just completely said fuck it.
Cuomo looking at you wide-eyed in disbelief. You know you've gone off the reservation, and I don't mean Warren's.
Hey there, if you like this video.
That was it? Oh my fucking god. That was literally all he had to say about that. Oh my fucking god. That's hilarious. Okay, what else did he say?
Applause for the answer. My follow question goes to this being like you're writing an opposition ad against you by saying you think the Boston Marathon bomber should vote. Not applause.
But I do believe that even if they are in jail, they're paying their price to society, but that should not take away their inherent American right to participate in our democracy.
Applause
So everybody in the crowd agrees.
for the answer. My follow question goes to this being like you're writing an opposition ad against you by saying you think the Boston Marathon bomber should vote not after he pays his debt to society, but while he's in jail. You sure about that?
Well,
Oh, Steven Crowder cut over. Maybe it was just that video. We cut over the applause.
Chris, I think I have written many 30-second opposition ads throughout my life. This will be just another one, but I do believe. Look, this is what I believe. Do you believe in democracy? Do you believe that every single American 18 years of age or older who's an American citizen has the right
Oh, this is what Crowder cut over.
to vote? Once you start chipping away at that, believe me, that's what our Republican governors all over this country are doing. They come up with all kinds of excuses why people of color, young people, poor people can't vote. And I will do everything I can to resist it.
Yep, verbatim what I was just talking about. So, okay. There's actually no argument against it. But here we are. What was the other one? There's another one. There's some other... Let's move in. Got 4 viewers here. I don't know how, like, a 10 of you guys are about this. I don't give a shit. We're moving into more politics. I just gotta make a clip marker. I don't need the other one, but whatever. How's everyone doing? Before I move on to the next thing, how's everybody doing? Everyone doing alright? Hope everyone's doing okay. I'm not gonna do that. Speech is violence, blah blah blah. Yeah. Oh god. Oh god. What was the one I... Oh, Jesus Christ, I want to hurt myself. Why did... Okay, hold on. We're gonna... Just give me a second. Just want to dig through this before I pick fucking same. Oh, it's the same one. I don't want to take his take on it. Fuck it. Oh, I guess oh no. Oh fuck. My favorite thing is when Ben Shapiro says like, "Oh, I'm all about facts," and then there's like a video, "The God of Truth." Like, okay. He's all about facts until it's religion, then he's completely fucking feelings. So fucking hilarious. It's just fucking mind-blowing. How you can be so facts over feelings until it comes to like your religion, then you're just uber feels over reals for like the rest of your life. It's Oh, do I want to watch this? Oh, that might make me hurt myself. Hold on. The title is "Does God Have a Political Party?" It's Ben Shapiro doing it. It's the most infuriating argument to have with anybody is when you're trying to talk to somebody about something, or the most infuriating conversation, when you're trying to talk to somebody and they bring up religion in it, and then it's over. Like, you can't actually have a discussion with them after that. It's impossible, because the moment they bring in religion, it's like, it doesn't matter what you tell them. They're like, well, Sky Daddy, Sky Daddy told me. And it's like, okay, do you have to like backtrack onto, okay, well, why does Sky Daddy exist? Blah, blah, blah. Do you really think the Bible is like word for word what really happened? If that's true, then you're even more lost. If that's not true, then what's the truth and what's not the truth? Why would God be allowed to make such a lying book? Why is God such an asshole? Like, why did God, if he's all omnipotent and all powerful, why did he bring, it just opens the whole other gate, and you just can't ever come back to the main point. So there's no point in arguing after somebody brings up religion, because they've just moved into an argument that is not based in reality whatsoever, right? This happens with Destiny whenever he's talking about abortion, right? It's impossible to have a conversation. He's pro-life, but he hates it because everybody else who agrees with him always goes back to religion, and it's impossible to have a real discussion when you just bring in religion, because it's stupid.